Howdy neighbor, how is your garden growing? Me and my garden, today we're going to talk about the vegetables, fruits, and flowers that you can grow in the month of December right here in the Sunshine State. And as always, I'm going to be using my handy dandy Wild Floridian Garden Planner. And when you pick up your copy right now, you can get the 2025 Wild Floridian Garden Planner and has what to plant, when to plant it, plus tons of tips. And this year we've added things like variety recommendations, native plants for beginners, and of course, when to plant herbs throughout the year. So go ahead and check this link out right here so that you can pick up your copy today. Let's talk vegetables. When it comes to the month of December, whether you live in North, Central, and South Florida, everyone should be focused on cold weather crops. And when we talk about cold weather crops, we're talking about carrots, onions, beets, radishes, all your brassicas like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and kale, along with a favorite in the garden, lettuce. Now, for those who live in South Florida, of course, you guys are going to be a little bit different in the month of December because North Florida and Central Florida, well, we're having some decent cold snaps. We're potentially getting some freezing days. But down in South Florida, I know you might be bundling up. I know you might be putting on a fluffy hat and gloves, but honestly, let's be real, you're only getting into the 50s. And because of that, you can still be doing, in addition to your cold weather crops, warm weather crops. So that means you could still be starting things like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and beans. Now let's dig a little bit deeper on what you should be focusing on, whether you live in North, Central, or South Florida. And in the month of December, when I look at a lot of the groceries I buy, when I look at a lot of the savory recipes that myself and my friends are following, well, there is one crop that I think we should all be considering, and that's going to be onions. Red onions, yellow onions, or white onions. If you want to go with a sweet onion or you want to go with something that's got a sharper bite to it, onions is something that is so versatile, from soups to salads to stews to your meat dishes. Honestly, onions are everywhere, but they're often a crop that we don't talk about a lot. So in the month of December, I would consider getting some onions started. But here's the thing, you don't just have to start these by seeds. You can actually just go ahead and buy starts. And these starts you can even find at places like Home Depot, Lowe's, or your local garden center. Look for things like Texas Grano, 1015Y, and much, much more. And if you're really a beginner and you want to get that onion flavor without having to wait a long time, let's start with green onion or scallion scraps. This is a super easy way to get started. Honestly, if you have been on the fence about getting a vegetable garden growing, if you're feeling intimidated and you want something that's going to give you some reassurance pretty fast that you're doing a good job, you need to do green onions, starting them from scrap. And it's a really simple process. Just go to the store, buy the green onions, cut the green onions off, leaving the white part and the part with the roots at the end, and then you're just gonna put them in a cup of water. Within 1, 2, 3 days, you're gonna already see it putting on new growth. Then you're just gonna take those and put them out into a pot, a vegetable garden bed, or into the soil. And within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you already have a harvest. This is one of my favorite crops to get people started on, whether they're retired or kids. I highly recommend, if you have been thinking about getting a vegetable garden started and you've been intimidated, green onions or scallions is the way to start. And this is a great time to start because whether it's leftovers from Thanksgiving or as you prepare for your Christmas dinner, a lot of you are going to be using scallions and green onions for dishes. So consider not throwing out those bottoms and instead putting them in a pot, a bed, or in the ground and get your first harvest going before the new year. My next crop that I'm going to be recommending is, of course, lettuce. Lettuce is another great one, and another one you can actually start by scrap if you're starting with something like a romaine lettuce head. Yes, again, you can take that bottom after you cut off the leafy part and you can put it in water and start to regrow lettuce. And you can actually hold it long enough in water to get roots growing and then again plant it in a pot or plant it back out. These are also a really easy one to start by seed, and if you're looking for a seed starting video, check out this video right here, which I'll go ahead and add to our December garden playlist. And what else is really great about lettuce is within 30, 40 days, you're gonna know for sure that you did this one right. You're also gonna be able to start harvesting little leaves for a fresh salad. So if you get this going at the beginning of the month, you can already start having fresh salads around Christmas time, or if you want to continue to indulge in sweets and savory dishes throughout the holidays, you'll have some lettuce ready for your salad resolution for the new year. Also, lettuces are great because they are one of the best return on investment crops. When you look at the prices of bag lettuce and even head lettuce, growing your own lettuce, whether you started from seed, you started from scraps, or you just pick up some starts from one of your Home Depot's, Lowe's, or your local garden stores, you're going to start saving money and you're going to be adding wonderful nutrition and nutrients to your diet. My two favorite I would consider looking for is things like butter crunch or bib lettuce, and of course romaine lettuce. And there's a lot of different types of romaines where you can get it in a classic green or reds or maybe both, so that you can have them ready for, you know, Christmas time. My next crop that I would highly recommend for you is beets. It's one of those crops that is kind of a win-win crop because you can both eat the beet and you can eat the leaves. And why it can be really advantageous to start it this month, unlike other crops, is because, well, when we hit December, if you're in North Florida and Central Florida, and as we head into January, this is the time of year when we're gonna hit some of our coldest weather, and it can be kind of unpredictable. But those rich, hardy, root-bound crops like beets handle that weather really well. We don't have to worry so much about cold protection for them. They can withstand the cold that Florida brings at this time of year. So if you're looking for a crop that's going to be resilient to the colder weather, beets would be a great addition. And what's so wonderful about these greens is that those nice little leaves, when it's starting to grow, can be added to salads, smoothies, and of course you can get your beet, which you can of course pickle and do like a pickled goat cheese salad, or you can go ahead and put it in hummuses. You can pickle it and can it. I mean, there's a lot of options with beets, and it's one of those hardier vegetables that I feel like is really nice to eat when it's colder out. So consider adding beets to your garden. And when it comes to varieties, I'm all about just the classic Detroit red. Now this is one of those ones that you're going to want to start by seed and not buy a plant, because root crops like beets don't really do really well with transplanting. That's, you know, growing at its little seedlings and then moving it. But the nice thing is they're pretty easy to get started. So I would recommend picking up a packet from Southern Exposure or your local store. And when it comes to beet varieties, for those who like to grow beets, what is your favorite variety to grow down here in Florida? Let's talk fruits. When it comes to the month of December, we're going to keep this list pretty short. And when we're thinking fruits in the month of December, if we're going to get something started, my recommendation is, of course, pineapples. So many people are going to be making upside down pineapple cakes. They're going to be making fruit salads. And of course, they're going to be using fresh pineapples. This plant, which is native to the South Pacific, is a great addition to your garden, because here in Florida we have the things that pineapples like, which is warmth, heat, and sandy soil. So you don't have to really try very hard when it comes to pineapples. As long as you keep that top, let it dry out, go get yourself a pot, grab a bunch of the soil from your garden, and if you're going to add some sort of mix or fertilizer to bag soil, go ahead and get one that's for like cactuses that you can pick up at the store. Now what's great about pineapples is that they are the fruit that keeps on giving. Once you plant your crop, it's going to take about 2 years to make another pineapple, so it's going to be a little bit of a wait. But what's great about this plant is it propagates through pups. Not puppy dog pups, but actually putting out small little plants to the side, and that will produce even more plants that you can divide off and then add. So while you wait for that first one, you start getting another and another and another going. It's one of those things that just grows exponentially over time if you keep propagating it. Now, a tip when it comes to fruit this month is that we're about to hit cold snaps. If you live in North Florida, you are at risk of having potential freezing frost weather this month. And the same goes for Central Florida. South Florida, you may at best have some 50s, but we need to all be prepared to have cold weather protection for our tropical plants, our vegetables, so that they can survive the sudden freezes that are going to last 2 hours, 4 hours, maybe 24, maybe 48 hours. Now, when it comes specifically to things like our fruit trees that are already in the ground, like bananas, papayas, mangoes, it can be really hard to have enough fabric to cover these plants. But one of the tricks this month is to take some of your Christmas lights and wrap them around your tropical plants. Yes, that's right. You can make your decorations save your tropical plants. Now, the trick to this is you need incandescent lights, not the LEDs, because they have to put off a little bit of heat. But because they put off a little bit of heat is really good. These can be the things that can help your bananas survive a cold snap, your papayas, and can be a little bit of peace of mind, because instead of you stopping all your holiday celebrations to run outside and put fabric cloth up and try to water and do all sorts of stuff, you just flip on the lights. Everyone thinks you're just decorating, and you can keep your tropical plants safe. Now, if you're in somewhere like North Florida, my Jacksonville's, my Tallahassee's, and you're gonna be in the 24, 48 hours, this might not work as well, depending on how cold it is. But especially for my southern portions of North Florida, my Central Floridians, and for goodness sake, my South Floridians, we only usually have to get through 2, 4, maybe 6 8 hours of freezing temperatures before the weather turns right back around. So consider taking advantage of your Christmas decorations to help your tropical plants survive the cold weather. Another thing to consider this month is that because it's going to be starting to hit colder, some of your crops and your plants that liked to get a lot of water, like your bananas and papayas, they're slowing down. They're kind of going, they're not quite dormant, but they're slowing down. So they don't need as much water as they needed in the summertime. So if you have things like in pots or in areas where sprinklers were running much more frequently, you're going to want to slow it down at this time of year. Now, when it comes to your vegetable crops, on the other hand, though, we need to be paying attention because we're not getting a lot of rain and these crops are in prime weather. So make sure that we're hitting these vegetables at least 2 times a week if we're not getting any rain. Now, my next tip for you, whether you're thinking vegetables, fruits, or flowers, is to consider what kind of major infrastructure projects do you want to get done. Now, I'm not saying get them done in December, though you could, but I know so many of you guys are creating Christmas lists and you're maybe considering buying some things, and gardening things might be on that list. So if you're thinking about getting arch trellises or putting in walls, or you're going to make garden beds, this might be the time of year to consider putting that on your Christmas list and maybe doing the project. Now, from a weather standpoint, the weather is great for doing these big projects. Do not wait till July. Don't be like me. I've done it many years in a row. It is awful to do these giant projects in July. December, January, February are some of the best months to actually knock these projects out. But I recognize there is a lot going on in the month of December that has nothing to do with your garden. So one might consider, though, getting a lot of your project supplies this month and preparation for maybe doing the projects in January. So whether you're going to go and move a lot of mulch, you're going to go and redo your lawn, there's a lot of opportunity, so consider using this month to plan and get ready. And of course, if you guys are considering getting raised metal garden beds and want to get the same ones that I have, you can go ahead and pick them up at this link right here, or you can check out this video right here where you can learn some of the top tips for purchasing raised metal garden beds, no matter the brand. Now let's talk flowers. When it comes to the month of December, the skies are just so blue, and it's a shame if you don't have some additional color in your garden. Yes, we're in drought season. Yes, a lot of the wildlife is starting to get quiet. The butterflies are potentially gone, but you can still add so much color to your garden with flowers, both native and Florida friendly. And here are some suggestions to add or look out for that are going to be in bloom in the month of December. And one of the ones that will add a lot of Christmas cheer to your garden is, of course, adding a Florida friendly poinsettia. Now, when it comes to poinsettia, there is the Florida friendly type and the native type that you could be adding to your garden. The one that you're going to find in the store is not the native type. That one is, of course, native to Mexico and the Gulf Coast region. And it is what brings a lot of red to your garden. And yes, unlike most of the country, which is just going to have these in pots laying all around, you could actually put them in your garden. This subtropical tropical plant actually can grow in Florida, and right now is a great time of year. So consider, as you put out all your Christmas decorations, your gardens, and you're adding lights, you may want to not only fill a flower pot with poinsettias, but you could line your driveway, line the sidewalk, or your front entry area with some of those Florida friendly poinsettias. Another one that's going to be in bloom at this time of year is, of course, going to be Chameleos. They're native to Southeast Asia and they have a rose vibe, but they can handle the heat of the tropics. They come in 3 different colors, from white, pale pink, to magenta pinks. Oh, and I guess red too. So they can add a lot of Christmas cheer and color to your garden and give you more of an English cottage garden vibe, which I'm always looking for. Now, when it comes to our native flowers, many of them are starting to go dormant at this time of year, but that doesn't mean that they're all out of bloom. Things like climbing Aster are starting to put out their mega blooms at this time of year. They have a gorgeous scent, which some people can smell and some people can't. I can smell it, my husband can't, but I love climbing Aster. This plant in the wild of Florida usually grows near waterways, not directly in the water, but always near it. So this is a great one that you can add to sunny areas, shady areas, and I would recommend the way you can get around it if you don't have waterfront property like along a canal, spring, or river is just put it near your sprinklers. I am by no means near any water, but the way I have gotten them to grow in my garden and produce tons and tons of flowers during the winter time is just by placing the plant near sprinkler heads. And this plant is actually really critical at this time of year because, especially in Central Florida, we're not actually cold enough for the bees to have gone dormant and to die off, so they're still looking for nectar sources. And when it comes to native plants, they don't have a lot of options. And even with Florida friendly plants, they don't have a lot of options. But climbing Aster is one of those plants that can help them get through the winter time, help them have food for themselves, have food for their babies, and it just looks really good. Another one to consider at this time of year, if you're looking for something for a hanging basket or as a ground cover, is gonna be brown savory. This low-growing semi-aquatic plant is great as a ground cover. Now, ground cover, not lawn alternative. This is something that's going to be really good at covering up those open spaces and flower beds for you, or if you're just looking for an area that just has something low growing, and it stays pretty much green year round. Prefers kind of those semi-shady areas, so it's not something that's going to get necessarily full sun all day, and it tends to like it a little bit wetter than dry, which makes it great, again, for those areas that are near sprinklers or near your swells. And what's amazing about this plant is it flowers almost the entire year, but it's one of those flowers that tends to bloom fall, winter, spring. So again, it fills in a great need for our native bees. And what's great about this as you work in your flower beds is this native plant has a lovely minty smell. And at Christmas time, who doesn't want a little bit of a minty, fresh smell in the air? It just makes me feel like just like all the Christmas desserts. And my third favorite winter flower that is native to the state of Florida, both north, central, and south, is going to be salt and pepper, aka snowy square stem. This plant is always a powerhouse for the bees. If you have honeybees, if you're wanting to support native bees, if you want butterflies, I mean, this thing, they all love it. And what's great about it is it kind of comes in two sizes. The version that's native to South Florida, it tends to be a low growing plant, and the version that's from North Florida is a little bit taller. I've had both versions in my garden here in St. Petersburg, and I can tell you the bees love it. Like they love it, along with the butterflies too. I love this one because it definitely, it lives up to the name, snowy square stem. It kind of, when you look at it, has that gorgeous snowflake look to the flowers. That's just really pretty. And it's, again, one of those ones that tends to bloom fall, winter, and spring. You can have it as a low growing shrub or mixed into a English cottage garden. It works both ways. Last but not least, one of the plants that might be blooming in your area, but it will definitely be having berries, is of course going to be our native beautyberry. Beautyberry is one of those plants that can handle full sun, but it can also work in those shady areas. I know a lot of people who do native gardening tend to have this under their oaks. The berries, of course, are edible for wildlife and great at helping our migratory birds and our songbirds throughout the winter months. And the berries are edible to us. Now, most people tend to not like them by themselves, but they make a wonderful Florida beautyberry jam, which can be a nice addition for your holiday. And what is great about this is it's not the only berry plant that's going to be producing at this time of year. There are tons of native plants that are going to be producing berries for our birds. And I'm going to put this video in our December garden guide playlist so that you can learn about other native plants that you can add to your garden for year-round greenery, interest, and berries in the wintertime. Oh, and look, the playlist is right here. So go ahead and check out that, where you can learn more about seed starting and some of the other Florida native plants, plus much more in this playlist. And if you want to go ahead and pick up your 2025 Wild Floridian Garden Guide, go ahead and click this link right here. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.